Geoff?
I'm just
Contemplating?
contemplating. This is what I love to do, just play and see what
Comes out,
what presents itself. So I'm doing an acoustic set at the Golden Saloon, Wild West City,
Right.
Netcom.
Uh-huh.
Not sure which one to call it. But my segment of the evening is going to be on acoustic guitar. I do all kinds of things. I do a little bit of picking, a little bit of my tunes and some old faves. And I like to get a little bit funky now and again. This is kind of a funky tune.
Anything you say, anything you do, the good or bad is gonna come right back on you. The earth keeps spinning like a tilt-a-whirl. Why don't wise men never wanna rule the world? You got your rich folks here, got your poor folks there, more than enough for the whole round world to share. The earth keeps spinning like a tilt-a-whirl. Why don't wise men ever wanna rule the world? I try to make a difference in my life, but time is tight, trying to make a living. There isn't too many chiefs and not enough brains, too many thieves carving up this place. The earth keeps spinning like a tilt-a-whirl. Why don't wise men ever wanna rule the world? Why don't wise men wanna rule the world?
Yeah, man. 91.9 WNTI, Public Radio. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. I was done. Done.
Little Big Man. I know that one.
So I Rule the World. It's off the Little Big Men
Little Big
album.
Men
Yeah,
album.
that's
Yeah.
right. It's normally played with the band, but that's one of the few that we do with the Diggers. That sometimes I'll have a crack at it on the acoustic guitar.
That's Geoff Achison
Yeah.
speaking to us.
Yeah.
And, you have a band in England,
Uh-huh.
the Soul Diggers,
Uh-huh.
and you have your Australian band.
The Soul Diggers.
Yes. And I saw you. Let me see. In 2002, a friend of mine in England gave me the Soul Digging in the UK,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
and he
Right.
wrote a review about one of the shows that he saw over there. It was one of the best shows he saw all year, he said. And I've been a fan since, and I was lucky enough to get you in the studio here, like 2003, 2004, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you were playing with the Kerry Carney band were backing you up, with Michael Falzerano.
Oh, yeah. There was a little festival kind of
Over in Allentown,
east of
yeah.
here.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then didn't see you back with another band. I didn't personally, but you had toured down in Atlanta, played with all sorts of interesting musicians down there.
Yeah. I got some good buddies over here that
Yeah.
hang out with, and they're the soul diggers over here when we get together and
Well,
do
right. You know, some of
gig.
we dropped some names.
Like,
Randall Bramlett.
yeah, Randall Brown. I'm doing some shows with later this month. We've got 3 shows down in Georgia and North Carolina. Coming up. I've done a bunch of stuff with Randall over the past few years.
And you got a pocket of big fans down there, thanks to Nancy.
Yeah.
You know, and the musicians that you plugged into.
Yeah.
But one thing I read about, I didn't realize that years ago you were in Portland.
I lived in Portland, Oregon, for about a year.
Yeah.
And that was in what was that, 98?
Great scene out
1998.
there, right?
Oh, look, some great clubs to play, some awesome festivals, and some really, really good players.
That Portland Festival's one of the granddaddies, the Portland.
Yeah, the waterfront.
Yeah.
The waterfront. Yeah.
I found that interesting because a couple of guys I'm fans of from England, Rod Price from the late Rod Price from Foghat, spent time in Portland.
Right.
Loved it up there. Mick Clark
Okay.
from Killing Floor spent time in Portland, and they made some records up there. I just found that interesting that you
Right.
ended up there.
Yeah, I lived in Oregon City,
Uh-huh.
and what was the club down the bottom of the hill there? The Trails End Saloon was one of my hangs. I used to go down there a whole lot, and there a lot of other clubs. But I hung out with a lot of the players there. I went out nearly every night, whether I had a gig or not, and would find a jam session or somewhere to sit in. But I put a band together while I was there, and we cut an album while we were there, and that's sort of what I came home with at the time. But I met up with Nancy just a couple of years later, after I'd moved home from Portland. And whilst I really enjoyed the Northwest, I did find it was as beautiful as it is. It's kind of isolated,
Yeah.
and I was trying to find somewhere that would get me out of that, because we have that phenomenon in Australia. It's a beautiful place, you know, and it's great, but we're a long way from
A lot of space
from
between,
everything.
yeah.
And the population isn't that big in Australia. We kind of live around the edges, you know? So there's nothing in the, well, there's a lot of beautiful desert, but not a lot of people to go and
A lot
play
of traveling to go from.
big spaces in between. It's like
It's the size of the United States.
yeah. It's a big country, but I was always really interested in coming over this side of the world and just seeing if if I could establish some kind of an audience over here and in Europe, and so I hooked up with the famous Nancy Lewis Pagel in Atlanta, Georgia, somewhere around the year 2000, I think.
Now, you had lived in London before. We're speaking with this Australian guitarist, Geoff Achison. You lived in London for a little while before that?
Yeah, that was
Tough
pretty
too,
much.
right?
I was there before I was in Portland.
Talk about extremes from Portland to London, right?
Yeah, I had a hard time in London when I first got there. I did have a contact.
Language barrier. And
I don't know what they're talking about, mate. But actually, the first fella that I met, I actually got introduced to this guy via somebody else, and he was in the music industry, and they said, "Oh, look, he'll look after you, mate. You know, he's in the music industry. He knows what he's doing." And anyway, he stole about 900 quid off me, you know, right off the bat. You know, and I'd just arrived there to try to get things going. He stole a bunch of money off of me, and you know, imagine that, a guy in the music industry doing that to a musician. Who'd have thunk it? So I had that to deal with. That was pretty ugly, and then. Look, I just wasn't getting anywhere, and so in the meantime I organised to come over to the States. I had this contact in Portland. I thought, well, I'll take them up on that. We'll see how it goes. But about 2 days before I left England, I filled in for somebody who double booked themselves for a gig. So
Gwyn Ashton?
Yeah, Gwyn Ashton. Gwyn. How do you know this stuff? Yeah.
Well, I remember a little bit about that story. It was kind of you got a kind of a break with that. With the BBC recording.
Yeah,
right?
well, Gwyn and I used to do gigs together in Melbourne, and Gwyn had just moved over to Europe, and he's still over there. Things really worked out for him over there. I doubt we'll ever see him back in Australia now. You know, he's got a good thing going. But Gwyn had moved over there around about the same time as me, and. So he double booked himself for a gig. So he called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll go and cover for you." And
Is that the Paul Jones show?
no, this was just a just a gig.
Yeah.
It was just a little gig in Kent at the Anchor in Kent, and Gwyn was good enough to call John Adams, who's the guy that produced, like, later on. He wound up producing that CD you were talking, the album, the Sold in the UK album you're talking about, because he became my manager, and so I went up going back to England on a regular basis, and so I put the band together, and we made a couple of records over there, and we're touring Germany next month. Actually, or not next month? No,
Germany's
October.
great, isn't it? They're such big blues fans.
Yeah, wonderful audiences. Yeah, great people to play to, and as are the Brits. You know, I must say, you know, that first guy robbed me, but every English person I've met after that was a jolly good chap.
But he sound, even if they rob you, they sound polite when they do it. Well,
anyway, but yeah, that's sort of a brief description of the journey. I mean, and sometimes you just got to. I tell this to young musicians, you know, sort of want to know how do you get things going, you know, how do you open doors. Sometimes you just got to turn up.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to get on a plane and take your bags, take your guitar or your
90% of life showing up, right?
Yeah. Ain't gonna happen if you sit in front of the TV.
Well, it's just amazing how you know, you guys found each other, and you know how much, like, she plugged you in down there, and you know how beloved you are down there. I mean, the people really.
Oh, they're my homies down in Georgia.
And you know, I would say, you know, your brief exposure here, you got a real solid following. You know, a very enthusiastic following. They appreciate you know, the high quality of music that you play, and there's not many people who play like you, Geoff.
Right. Oh, thanks, Greg. Thanks. I always enjoy getting up to this part of the world as well. You know, it doesn't happen anywhere near as often as we'd like.
Yeah. So you know, I can't say it enough. I'm just so thrilled that you're here, and I thank you and Nancy for stopping by. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll finish up a segment. We'll play some more music, and I could talk to you all night. I mean, you're just fascinating. What a history you have, and you continue to make. So, Geoff Achison in our studio. We're going to take a break. Come back.